Good evening and welcome back everybody to the One Day at a Time blog. I hope that you were able to tune in earlier and congratulate Miss Sharon Artist on winning the $10 gas gift card. She is actually a co-worker of mine that has been training me on my new job, and I am just so happy to be able to bless her with that card because she has blessed me starting this new job. She's just been a wonderful resource and just so very kind to me in starting this new job and making me feel welcome. So it is going to be my pleasure to take her that gift card on Tuesday. So I am tuning in with you. I am outside today. As I tell you, fall is absolutely my happy time. I'm an October baby. As a matter of fact, today is my 37th birthday, and so I am just beyond elated, mostly because I am just so grateful to God for allowing me to live these 37 years, and not only to live but to survive. I have survived through many trials and many tribulations, and I have allowed those trials and tribulations to become my testimony, and not only to become my testimony, but to become my ministry. And so I am grateful to God for that, for allowing me to go through those trials and tribulations and allowing me to survive, and not only allowing me to survive, but allowing me to take that testimony and turn it into a ministry where I can reach out to people and help them to develop some type of mental freedom and mental clarity. So today I am tuning back in with you. I did tell you I was going to blog today about one of the dimensions of the mind, which is sexuality. But sometimes I will change, and a lot of times that change will be based on something that I have noticed that a lot of my bloggers are experiencing, or just something that is heavy on my heart, or just something that God has spoken to me about. And so actually yesterday, he touched my heart and spoke to me and said that he wanted me to talk to my bloggers about a certain topic called crying. And the reason that is because in general, our nation over the last couple of weeks has just been exposed to a lot of traumatic events. And those events have been the Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Maria, that have come through, and that have just caused massive destruction. And we've had the loss of lives. And then not only that, but the Las Vegas shooting where 58 were killed. And then also, if you include the killer himself, then 59 lives were lost. And we do have to include him in that, because obviously he was suffering from some type of mental disease where he would do such a damaging thing and then also take his life. And then not to mention just all the other sad stories that you hear on the news, where automobile accidents have claimed people's lives, or other mentally challenged people have taken the lives of their family or friends, or just families that have lost loved ones to the battle of cancer. It just seems to me that this last couple of weeks has just been a lot of overwhelming grief. And so I know a lot of my bloggers probably have been experiencing a season of just kind of emotional turmoil, and during that time, then a lot of us will cry. Sometimes we just cry, like I cried when I heard about the Las Vegas. I wasn't directly connected to anyone there, but I cried for the families, and I cried for the family of the man that actually did it, because it is just a very, very devastating situation. And so it is emotionally draining, and a lot of times due to that we will cry. So God wanted me to speak on that, because a lot of times people think that crying is a sign of weakness, and it is something that shows that we are not able to physically deal with the situation. But actually, I want to talk to you today because crying actually is a very, very positive emotion. It can have positive physical effects on our body, and it can actually help us move forward in whatever situation it is that we're dealing with. Now, of course, like everything else, it does have a positive and a negative aspect, and we're going to talk about both of those. So I just want to talk about that, and how this crying can help us get over the season we're currently dealing with, and how it can actually help us become physically and mentally clear. So again, when I look off screen, please excuse me, I'm looking at a lot of notes that I have. I don't like to just blabber on. I do like to give a maximum amount of information in the short amount of time that I have. So let's talk about crying. When you think about crying, what do you think? Do you think it is a weakness? Do you think it shows the inability to cope. Just think about it for a moment, and then in your mind, just kind of get a definition of what you think it is. And here, I'm going to tell you what it is. Crying is actually a very, very normal, it is a human response in response to sorrow and frustration. And it is actually a very, very healthy response. Of course, in context, but it is a very healthy response. It is a natural way to reduce emotional stress. It is very good, and it is very healthy to cry. Just to give you a little bit of education and information about crying, when you cry, of course, you produce something called a tear. And so there's actually 3 forms of tears, or 3 forms of cries that the human body experiences. So let's talk about that. The first form of cry, or the first form of a tear, is called a basal tear. And a basal tear is always in your eye. Basically, this tear serves as a purpose for lubrication, for nourishing and protecting your eye. So right now when you're looking at this blog, you have basal tears in your eye just for the purpose of lubrication, so that when you blink, it's not very uncomfortable and it's a very fluid motion. The second type of cry and tear is known as a reflex tear. This tear is produced to protect the eye from irritants. And when I talk about irritants, I'm talking about, like, I'm outside now. If the wind were to blow too hard, I would probably produce tears, or smoke, or cigarette smoke, or onion. If you've ever been in the house just cutting the onion and just tears start flowing down your eye, those are called reflex tears. And again, that's to protect your eye from an irritant. And then the third type of cry/tear is an actual emotional tear. An emotional tear is actually produced in response to an emotional situation. And what's really interesting about the tear is each tear is chemically composed of different components. And of course, I want to focus on the emotional tear. Emotional tears actually have a higher level of stress. Hormones such as the adrenocorticotropic hormone and enkephalin, which is an endorphin and natural painkiller. So when you're crying, it is actually very positive for the body, because the body is releasing these stress hormones, again, the adrenocorticotropic hormone and enkephalin, which is a painkiller. So when you start to cry, you start to release the stress from you. And then you also start to release these endorphins, which are painkillers, which is there to actually kill the pain that you are feeling inside your body. So we have talked about that. So basically, of course, like I said, I want to focus on emotional tears and why it is very, very, very positive to actually cry and allow these emotional tears to fall. A lot of us, especially men, have been taught that it's not manly at all to cry. It shows a sign of weakness. You're supposed to just sit there and you're supposed to suck it up. Actually, that is the most unhealthy response to any emotion that you can do, is to sit there, suck it up, and not allow those tears to fall. Crying is actually a lot stronger emotion than sitting there and not crying. Let me move down a little bit. So the reason that's important is, again, I said crying releases hormones, stress hormones. One of those stress hormones, which we have talked about before, is called cortisol. Cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone. It is actually a wonderful hormone and is directly correlated with what we all know as the fight or flight response. Again, the fight or flight response is what happens when we are presented in front of a very terrifying situation. For instance, like I'm sitting outside now and I have my daughters out here playing. So if I were to look up and see just a vicious dog barreling at them, then that my brain, there's a there's an organ in our brain called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, it's a tiny region at the base of our brain, and that sets off an alarm in our body. And through a combination of nerve and hormonal signals, this system prompts our adrenal glands, which is located at the top of our kidney, to release a surge of hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol. So if I were to see this animal barreling towards my children, then all of a sudden these signals will send out to my body, release cortisol, and with that, a surge of glucose, which is sugar. This is just a little biology lesson, It is distributing my blood. And with that, then my body all of a sudden just becomes like a superhero. I'm able to move faster. I'm able to think faster. My heart pumps faster. I become stronger. And that is, again, the fight or flight. And as a mother, I'm going to fight. I'm going to go out there. I'm probably going to do everything I can to prevent that dog from actually attacking my children. And all of that is in response to the cortisol that was released into my body, which physiologically made me into like a little temporary superwoman so that I can protect my children. So again, that is a stress hormone that is amazing. It can actually save lives. You've actually heard of sometimes superhuman things where people have lifted cars off of people. That is, again, because of that cortisol that has released sugar into your bloodstream and made you into a little superhuman. So again, that is a positive hormone that we need in our body. But the problem is we do not need to be exposed to long periods of time of increased cortisol. So when we're crying, our body releases some of that cortisol in our tears, which is good because once I've gone out there, once I've gotten the dog off of my children, then my body needs to return back to a relaxed state. I no longer need that increased sugar. I no longer need that increased strength. I no longer need my blood pressure to be sky high. I no longer need to be just pumped up. I need my body to return to a normal state. It is very, very unhealthy to be in that elevated state at all times. So when you cry, you release some of that cortisol, which allows your body to return back to a calm state. Whenever we don't cry and say, hey, suck it up, then guess what? That cortisol, that little superhuman hormone, it remains in our body. And then what happens? Our body gets fatigued. It gets tired because the body is not supposed to be exposed to long periods of stress. It is very, very unhealthy. When we are, then we start experiencing anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, heart disease, sleep problems, weight gain, memory and concentration impairment. All of that is very, very dangerous. And again, it is in response to those increased levels of stress hormones, which is cortisol. So again, crying releases those tears, which has those that hormone in it, and it's releasing it out of your body so that you can return back to a calm state. Also, tears have toxins. So whenever we cry, a lot of times we're releasing toxins from our body. When we don't cry and we allow those tears to just build and build, then we're trapping those toxins in our body, which is very, very dangerous. So again, that is why crying is a very, very positive, it's a very positive response to things that we're going through emotionally. Not only on a physical sense, but also on emotional sense. There's our tears actually signal to other people that we are emotionally distraught. And of course, it's very important when we are emotionally distraught for our loved ones to reach out and provide us with the support and the help that we need. If you're not crying, and then a lot of time people don't know, and they won't reach out to help you. And so that's when we start feeling alone and we start feeling like no one cares. So again, tears, they have a physical component that it actually physiologically can alter our body in a good or a bad way. And they have an emotional component that can actually connect us with the resources by actually allowing people to see that we are in an emotional state. So of course, like I say, for everything does have an up and a downside. Crying is normal, but there does come a time when crying is actually very abnormal, and it can be a signal that we are mentally depressed or that we are suffering from some type of mental disease. It's good to be able to identify the difference. So like I said, a lot of us are experiencing a season now of just grief because of everything the nation's going through or something your family may be going through. But some of us we cry excessively and we can't really pinpoint why we're crying. You just may feel anxious or sad or you just you just cry just for no identifiable reason. Now, unfortunately, that type of crying is a signal that you may need some additional help outside of what it is that I'm providing here in the blog, or just everyday help that you would just receive. And so that's when I encourage you to look back at my other posts where I talk about mental depression and mental disease and how you need to go about getting additional help for yourself. But let's go back to the positive crying and talk about if you are simply experiencing a season. Like I said, a lot of times we can, as a nation or as a people, just get in a season of depression and sadness based on external conflicts. Then let's go ahead and cry. Let's cry it out. I encourage you to cry it out. But the way I'm going to help you live mentally a lot mentally freer and have more clarity is I want you to have purposeful cries. One of my favorite poems is actually by Iyanla Vanzant. It's called Yesterday I Cried. I'm going to attach it below to this blog so that you can actually read it, because it is a very insightful poem, and it's actually helped me to get through some very emotional times of our lives. But I want you to start. If you have been crying, then hey, I'm telling you it's okay. But this is how I want you to move forward. I want you to cry with an agenda. The last line of her poem says, it's very powerful. It says, yesterday I cried, but I cried with an agenda. And so that is something that I often do. I've often told friends that I saw crying, it's okay to cry, but I want you to cry with a purpose. And that's what you as my bloggers, we're going to start doing. I want you to do this. Every time you cry, I want you to end that cry with some type of an agenda. For example, today I cried because my divorce or my relationship, it was just weighing heavy on my heart. But at the end of that cry, your agenda should be, well, I'm going to forgive that ex-spouse, or I'm going to forgive myself. I am going to go to counseling so that I can get over this hurt or this emptiness that I'm feeling. Or you can say, today I cry because I feel stagnant and I feel out of control. Hey, go ahead and cry that cry. But at the end, I need you to have an agenda or a plan to move forward. I'm going to get psychological counseling. I'm going to watch this blog every day until I feel better. I'm going to go talk to a family member. I'm going to go ahead and find a way to help myself move forward in life. So again, if you cry, write out an agenda, even if you have to write it out. As you're crying, go ahead and get a piece of paper, start writing it out. And so the good thing about that is every time you cry, say you're crying a lot within the last week, guess what? You're going to have a ton of agendas. You're going to have a ton of agendas to go ahead and help you move forward in life. And I encourage you to write those agendas down, hang them up in different places in your house so that when you're walking around, you see, hey, this is something I need to do today. This is something I need to have done by the end of the week. Have short-term, have long-term agendas so that you can go ahead and make each cry that you have purposeful. And then I can guarantee you that those cries will become less and less and less, and your joyous moments will become more and more and more. But again, the foundation for those joyous moments happening is actually the crying with agenda. So of course, just remember that if you listen to this and you can't actually engage in my advice and actually cry with the agenda, and the crying just becomes more and more excessive, and you can't break this vicious cycle of emotional turmoil, then again you may actually be dealing with a little more of mental cloudiness and a little more mental depression than what you can deal with. And that's when I encourage you to reach out and get help. If you can't do it on your own, then feel free to contact me. So it is okay to cry. It is actually a very positive response to emotional turmoil. But what it's not okay to do is cry without an agenda. Now that you have this knowledge is power. This is how we're going to move on. So today, tomorrow, and from here on out, we're going to always cry with agenda. Again, if you can't break the vicious cycle, then please get help. Otherwise, I'm extremely excited to have shared this knowledge with you. Starting tonight, if you cry, starting tomorrow, if you cry, we're going to cry with agendas, and we are going to continue to take it one day at a time. I will talk to you tomorrow. I love you. I love you. I love you.